So Canelo Alvarez once again put on a pretty strong performance over Jaime Munguia, getting a 12-round unanimous decision. From the get-go, Munguia showed promising moves, utilising his jab effectively in the initial rounds, interchanging between the head and the body. And I actually thought he was doing a good job with it, keeping Canelo at bay for the most part and setting up some nice backhands and combinations. But as the fight progressed, Canelo's experience shone through. As we all know, Canelo usually takes those early rounds to assess what his opponent is doing, while he was also landing his own occasional jabs and counters as well. And I think this just showed his vast experience over Munguia, who you could tell was starting to just get that little bit too confident going into that fourth round, and he just started to stand in the pocket just that little bit too long. Even for me, I felt he would have just tried to stick behind his jab a little bit longer, but I guess his Mexican heritage took over, and possibly there may have been a bit of Alvarez giving Munguia a false sense of security as well, making him try to push the action. And well, it worked. And in the fourth round, Munguia really started to up his output on Canelo, and he actually landed 2 huge right hands on him. But the fact he was willing to take more risks played into Canelo's hands, as seen with the first knockdown. A beautifully timed throwaway left hook, right uppercut, which wasn't helped by the fact Munguia planted his feet and used that high guard standing in the pocket. Well, Canelo hadn't really thrown that punch up until that point, which I think once again just shows Alvarez's experience in these positions to change up his combinations. And I'm not gonna lie, Jaime looked quite nervous and unsettled after that knockdown, but regardless, he kept fighting. And over the next few rounds, Canelo was really able to land some big counters and get off some nice combinations as well. And Munguia would have pockets of success, but the impact of Canelo's power punches really were just that impactful, and would make his countrymen think twice before coming back again. In round 7, Canelo also landed a beautifully timed left hook to the body, which you could tell really put his dent on Munguia at that point, as he had no choice but to lower that right arm to stop Canelo from targeting it and landing consistently going forward. But in turn, this worked in Canelo's favour once again, as he was able to then get off his jab and his left hook up top. And it wasn't until about the 9th round we actually saw Munguia try to come forward again, and maybe there was a bit of Alvarez taking his foot off the gas as well at that point, but Canelo was still landing those impactful counters, especially with the right hand and left hook due to that lowered right arm. But it was a little too late at that point, and Canelo was able to use his experience, variation and combinations, powerful counters and ring generalship to close out the show really. Even though Jaime did come back and was trying to push the action late on, it was all just a little bit too late at that point. And there is just the possibility Jaime was quite hurt after that 4th round, so was cautious to commit in those mid rounds, which is where Canelo really won the fight in my opinion. Now overall, I thought it was actually a good fight. I felt we need to applaud Munguia for actually coming to take the fight to Canelo. He actually had good success at times, getting off some really good combinations against him. However, I felt when Jaime was just getting that little bit of momentum and confidence, bang, Canelo would come back with another impactful counter, which would really shake him up and even hurt Munguia at times. While Canelo also showed some good upper body defense at times, avoiding that right hand, but opted to mainly use the high guard for the most part, which did in turn draw in Munguia so he could set up his own punches. I also think the fact Munguia was willing to stand and trade just helped Canelo get off these punches even before the knockdown. Not that I think he couldn't have set him up if he wasn't doing that, but when Munguia was actually getting behind his jab in those early rounds from distance, it posed more of a problem for Canelo. But looking at the CompuBox numbers, it's quite clear that even the output from Canelo was pretty decent throughout this whole fight across the board. But it was his accuracy which was the difference. Munguia would try to keep up at times, actually throwing more punches at 663 compared to Alvarez's 536, but the accuracy of Canelo's power punches was the difference maker, as he landed 151 at 49.7%, while Munguia only landed 29.3% of his. Now what does this mean for both men going forward? Well, Munguia, I think this was a great experience fight for him, and I think he can take a lot off this, especially in terms of maybe just being that little bit more disciplined in those early to mid rounds. But I think he did have some good moments in there last night with some great combinations, landing pretty flush on Canelo at times. But for me overall, it just was his consistency with his offense, and the most obvious being working on his defense. But in my opinion, he will come back stronger, and the amount of people that said he was going to get knocked out in the first 5 rounds was pretty disrespectful in my opinion. Yes, he got knocked down, but you have to give him credit for actually taking the fight to Canelo, who's a very experienced fighter. Even when he looked a bit lost, he kept coming forward at times. And that actually made it a more intriguing fight compared to the Charlo fight, for example. You have to actually give him some respect for taking the fight to him. But personally, I do think he'll come back a lot stronger from this. He obviously does need to work on his strategy a bit more and be more disciplined with it, and also his defense. For Canelo, well, the fight we all want is Benavidez, and I think it's painfully obvious at this point. But if we're being frank, it looks like the fight with Berlanga is probably most likely at this point, unless they can sort out the finances against Benavidez. Maybe Turkal Sheik can help out with this one, but I can't really see anyone else really competing with Canelo at 168. If you think someone can, let me know in the comments below. And 175 is a different story. But I think overall this was a good performance from Canelo. But I also think his opponent's style and lack of experience in these big fights, and him willing to stand and take risks, probably helped him look a lot better than he actually was. Not taking anything away from Canelo's performance, he was terrific last night. I just feel the style of his opponent helped out as well. But yeah guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Were you impressed by Canelo's performance? And what would you like to see happen for both men? This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.